let's make the most amazing, no knead, no mixer, yeast raised donuts. Who can resist hot, freshly glazed donuts? Well, we all love donuts. Kneading the dough can be tricky. If you have a mixer, it's easy enough, but if you don't, I heard you. Kneading the dough by hand can be a nightmare. So let me show you how you can skip the entire kneading process. And while there's many different ways to make no-knead dough, I'm going to share with you one of the easiest, foolproof ways and perfect for beginners. This recipe and technique comes from my new cookbook, Simple Pleasures.
So let's do a little look inside the book. So this is how it's going to look like. So obviously there's going to be recipes here and then here, some other recipes and pictures. I'm just joking. I'm joking. Okay, let me show you the real cookbook.
There's so many new recipes in the book, but there's also an entire section on foundations and techniques, like the one I'm showing you in this video. The book is available now for pre-order.
I did not know this, but pre-orders are extremely important for the success of the book. So it would mean the world to me if you pre-ordered the book. Okay, back to the donuts.
Believe it or not, to make these donuts, you'll only need a bowl and a wooden spoon. To the bowl, we're going to add butter. I like to cut it into small pieces as it melts faster and more evenly. Microwave the butter until melted. You want to touch and swirl the bowl. If the bowl is hot, you want to wait 5 minutes. You never want to add yeast to hot liquids. Add the milk, egg, salt of course, and sugar. Normally, you would combine the sugar with the flour. However, since we're not kneading this dough, it's really important to dissolve the sugar thoroughly. Adding the sugar to the liquids allows the sugar to dissolve and to blend seamlessly with the flour, resulting in a smooth and supple dough. Add the yeast, and you want to give these ingredients a good mix. Now, with most yeast, you really don't need to bloom the yeast. However, letting it bloom does give you peace of mind knowing the yeast is active. That's especially important for this dough because we will be putting it in the fridge later on. Refrigerated dough doesn't grow as much. To alleviate any concerns about the dough not rising or doubting if the yeast is still alive, we'll just bloom it. Cover the bowl with a plate and wait 5 to 10 minutes. After 5-10 minutes, the mixture should be bubbly and smell kind of funky. If your mixture has more or less bubbles than this, it is fine. As long as something is happening, this means your yeast is well and alive and ready for a donut party. Add the flour, and you want to make sure you combine it well with the wet ingredients. This means no dry patches of flour, so take your time with this. If the dough gets a little bit difficult to work with, you can absolutely mix this with your hands. Don't forget to get the sides and bottom of the bowl. Once your dough is well hydrated, meaning there's no dry spots of flour, you're going to take a spatula and push down the dough that's stuck to the side of the bowl. Cover the bowl with plastic wrap and set this to the side on your counter for 2 hours. After 2 hours, the dough should have risen. You're going to take it out of the bowl and give it somewhat of a shape. Shaping the dough into a ball will make it much easier to get beautifully shaped donuts without the bumps and lumps of, this shaggy dough. I do recommend you wash out the bowl or just swap it for a new one. We don't want any crusty bits of flour and dry dough to latch onto our beautiful, supple, soft dough. Grease the bowl before you put the dough back into the bowl, and this dough does need to go in the fridge overnight. Normally, you would need the dough to develop the gluten network. However, since we skipped the entire kneading process, the gluten network will develop on its own while the dough is in the fridge overnight. You're essentially swapping out kneading for time. I recommend you add a double layer of plastic wrap. The last thing you want is for the dough to dry out in the fridge. That's happened to me before. It's not fun. Imagine waiting till the next day to only find a dried out dough. Pop this in the fridge overnight. Now, I do have a dough that I made the day before. Let me show you how this is going to look the day after. It should have risen slightly, but this will really depend on what time of the year you're watching this video and making your dough. It's normal in winter for this to grow slower, so have less of a rounded, fluffy shape, and it's normal in summertime for this dough to have more of a bump and a fluffier and rounder shape. The reason I say this is because I don't want you to panic or think you've done something wrong if your dough isn't as big as mine. This is why we bloom the yeast. That way, regardless of its size, you know the dough is alive. This should plop right out of the bowl. Just place it onto your floured work surface and roll this out. Now, if you've never worked with cold dough, it's amazing, especially in summertime. I love working with refrigerated dough. It's easier to maneuver, to flip, it keeps its shape really well, and it does not stick to your board. I feel you also get a really precise cut. Look how beautiful this donut looks. It almost looks like sugar cookie dough. With this recipe, you should be able to get about a dozen donuts, but you will have to re-roll the dough. A lot of people have a hard time re-rolling the dough, and that's because it's stressed and needs to relax. Even doughs need occasion. If you try rolling the dough right now, it will just fight back. So cover it well for about 20 to 30 minutes, let her relax, and you'll find it will be a lot easier to roll out and make more donuts. I like to place my donuts on squares of parchment paper that I cut out. It's just easier to maneuver them into the oil. You're going to cover these and allow these to rise for about 45 minutes. The dough was cold from the fridge, so they will need more time for the second rise compared to regular donuts. In the meantime, you can re-roll the dough and make more donuts. After 45 minutes, your donuts should have risen again. They'll look chubby and delicious. If you gently press a finger into the donut and the dough bounces back, it's perfectly proofed. You want to preheat the oil to about 360 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. Carefully place the donuts into the oil. This is why I love using parchment paper. The donuts will keep their shape beautifully. Please be careful when frying and do not overcrowd the pan. I know I did, but it's just because I needed some pretty B-roll, okay? I need some enticing B-roll for the video. Now, you don't want these to become dark. I feel I've seen too many dark donuts in my life. No. That's not a donut. That's like churro meets fried chicken. Donuts are supposed to be soft and supple, not crispy. If you like crunchy donuts, well, we have a problem. Cook these until golden. I would say about 2 minutes on each side. If the donuts are becoming too dark, you can lower the flame. Transfer these to a wire rack and let's make the glaze. Glazed donuts, in my opinion, are the most amazing donuts. It's something to do with the glaze. As it sets, it locks in the moisture, making the donuts soft and tender. They just melt in your mouth. To make the glaze, combine melted butter, milk, vanilla, and powdered sugar. You want to glaze the donuts while they're still warm, so wait about 5 minutes and coat them completely with the glaze. You can, of course, also decorate these and fill these with whatever you like. Set these on a wire rack so the glaze can set and then enjoy. These are soft and tender. It's almost impossible to stop at just one.